Alright YouTube, so today's video we're actually going to dive into the world of Sony and talk about sort of my thoughts. A lot of you have actually asked about the new flagship from Sony, the Sony A1 II that has come out recently. I made a very brief video talking about it when it was actually introduced. You want to sort of more of a deep dive. So here are some of my unfiltered thoughts, some of the ones you might like, some of the ones you might not like. There is no fanboyism going on here. As you guys know, I shoot multiple brands, be it Sony, be it Canon, be it Nikon. So what I'm about to say, I think it might hurt some feelings, but it might actually be a lot of common sense for some. So it all depends on what you want. The question at hand and the title of this video is the Sony A1 the true flagship from Sony? Yes or no? And again, this is my opinion. You don't have to agree. I don't need to watch Gerald undone and this undone and that undone. I'm sharing with you a long history of actually owning Sony products for many, many years and many iterations of their products and spending tens of thousands of dollars on their lenses. So anyway, I just want to level set that. So please watch the video till the end. I think you'll find it very informative, especially if you're looking to buy one of these cameras. The Sony A1 II is an incredible offering. The original Sony A1 was an incredible offering. When Sony actually introduced the Sony A9 back in 20, I think, don't hold me on the date, 2016, 17, somewhere in that range. It shook up the world, and it was the true flagship. And they came out with the Mark II, which is right here. And it looked like an incremental update, but they did change a lot of things inside. Then they came out with the Mark III, which shook the world again with a global shutter. And alongside there, there was another camera that was lurking, which was, this is the R5 Mark II, but the original R5. That was really eating Sony's lunch. So what did they decide to do? Okay, the A9 II is there, it's good, can't really compete with the R5 when it comes to megapixels. But the A9 II is an incredible 24 megapixel stack sensor, right? And the R5 didn't have that, so what did they do? They made the A1, and they called it the one. Okay, fine. They went down that path. Nikon followed suit on that because they wanted that sensor or a variant of that sensor, and they put it into their Z9. So then all of a sudden this narrative became high megapixel, flagship. Flagships have never been high megapixel. They're designed for speed and the utmost in technology, on the sidelines, on where it really counts. So 50 megapixels trying to shoot it with a CF Express Type A card, where the technology wasn't even fully developed yet. With the version 2 of this camera now, obviously Type A cards have come a long way, but they're still expensive as hell. So Sony made that. So where am I going with this? My opinion, the Sony A9 III today for $6,500, $6,400 in the United States, and the Sony A1 for the same price. The Sony A9 III, in my opinion, is the true flagship. That camera has so much future technology in it that's so promising to the brand of Sony, more than the A1 II. A1 II, yeah, they added some of these gimmicks and they finally brought it up to the level of the R5 II autofocus. So Sony finally has caught up to Canon when it comes to autofocus. They put the auto mode in there, things we've been bitching about for a long time. There is no reason why Sony should have, left out the A9 II, A9, all of the other models from getting some of these things. They made a conscious decision. This is what Sony does. You want that one feature, you're going to have to buy a new body. This is where I think Nikon and Canon blow Sony's ass to water, because what they've given away with these firmware update and those feature sets without forcing people to buy a new camera, hats off to both of those brands. Sony, I'm sorry, being a pro support member and sending you over 9 emails, no response to even fix the autofocus in the A9 II and the A7R4, you never did it. So what did I do? I stopped buying all of your latest stuff. Now the A9 III came out. I've been eyeing it for a long time because of the global shutter. I use flash a lot. With mirrorless, it's a major freaking pain in the ass. With the A9 III, it's not an issue anymore. That's what I mean. With the Sony A1 Mark II, great camera, but honestly, it is not the master of all. I think the A9 III is the master of all. And comment down below if you disagree. I'm pretty sure many of you will disagree because you've got to have your 50 megapixel thingies, and which is good. I am not going to shoot 50 megapixels and have massive files, especially if you have fast turnaround on the sidelines. I'd rather have 24 like this with a stack sensor and be good to go. Sony, if you're listening, again, this is my last attempt with you. The Sony A9 II, this camera is still very hard for most brands to beat today. Put 4K 60 in this. It already has a 24 megapixel stack sensor in here. You can do so much with this body if you just were to just do a firmware refresh and put it out there as a complementary camera to your Sony A9 III, anyone that's buying that. It could be incredible. So all I'm saying to all of you is the Sony A1 Mark II a bad camera? No. I think it's an incredible camera. Compared to the Sony A1, I think they've added a lot of things in there. But if you already have the A1, spending another $6,500 to get some of the other things that are there, I don't know, maybe it's worth it to you. If it is, go for it. Use the links below, knock yourself out. If I had the original A1 and I saw what they sort of released, I wouldn't buy it. The A9 II that I have today, I use it a lot. I love this camera. And the A9 III, I have not shot with it, but would love to get my hands on it with the global shutter and at least play with it. Because I truly think that is the next frontier. And I've mentioned this many times in videos. The A1 II is more of shut the people up, catch up to the other brands, and just leave them alone. And so they added some of the stuff, auto stuff. It could track a bird, track this, track that. It can track a lot more things now. Like it couldn't do priority tracking of whatever your subject is in video up until now. Canons have had that. So now they have that. That's what I meant earlier about them catching up. So in that respect, I think it's great, but truly calling it a flagship, I don't know. I really think, in my opinion, the A9 III is really the breadwinning camera for the professional on the sideline to make things happen. Just because of the versatility of that global shutter that's in there. And a lot of people are, oh, you get a penalty for this, that. Who cares? The software is so good today, the penalties don't mean shit. But if that means I can shoot 120 frames per second raw and get that shot, especially if I'm contracted by a company to get the shot, you can't beat that. Same thing with the Canon R1, right? The only reason why I won't bring up the Z9 is because you know how I feel about, not being able to shoot raw in its fastest speed. So you can't shoot 30 frames per second raw in a Z9, so whatever, but on the R1 you can, R5 II you can, Sony A1 you can, and the A9 III you can. So those are my thoughts, and I'm not knocking any brand, I'm just stating what the facts are. But it's your money, spend it wisely, but what I would really recommend is do a very thorough analysis of what you have. Don't rush to buy these things. So my advice, if you made it this far, think about what I've said and see what you really need and what you shoot, how you shoot it. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the decision that you make, especially if you're going to stay in the Sony ecosystem. I think the Sony A9 III is much more promising than the A1. If they would have put a new sensor in and done some, major tech updates, yeah, that would have been a different thing. But they didn't do any of that here. So another $6,500 to just get the same sensor with, autofocus and all that stuff fixed, which they should have fixed all along the way, or brought it up to par with the other brands. They could have done most of that without the chips and all that stuff. It can be done. I mean, they just always tell you it can't be done. Whatever. Every brand is going to do that because they want to sell you a new camera. With that, leave your comments below. Would love to have a discussion, but keep them civil and do not leave any disparaging comments down below. So I am back. We are planning to make a lot more videos like this. Think about it on how to spend your money wisely. If you're spending $6,500 and you don't have a Sony camera, define your use cases. And based on that, decide if the A1 II is the one for you or the A9 III. And if you're shooting a lot of high-speed type of things and you don't really need 50 megapixel files, trust me, when you have 50 megapixel files and you have large amounts of it, storage and all this stuff is expensive. You got to buy the new MacBook, M3, M4 type of chips, to really get the most out of these things. So there are a lot of costs associated with it. So that's where I think the A9 III would become a great value for the money. So with that, like, subscribe, be nice to each other, go out there, create your magic, and I will talk to you in the next one.